Thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this episode of 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. If you haven't heard, AG1 is a comprehensive and convenient blend of over 70 high-quality ingredients, and it is so easy to drink. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is add a scoop of AG1 to some cold water, give it a shake and drink. It's as easy as that, and it is now part of my morning ritual. If, like me, you're trying to be healthier for 2025, then AG1 is one of the easiest things that you can do. It contains vitamins and nutrients to support your immune system and key minerals and natural ingredients to help maintain energy levels and focus. As AG1 is a more-in-one supplement, it is so much simpler than stocking up on lots of different vitamins, lotions and potions, and it's a really easy way to support a healthier lifestyle. 1 scoop of AG1 per day supports energy, digestive regularity, immune defence and a healthy mood, so I'll be ready to take on whatever this year has in store for me. Looking to give AG1 a shot? Subscribe now and get a free bottle of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription. Go to drinkag1.com/1865 and get started today. That's drinkag1.com/1865.
This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts. Only at theaters February 7th.
The NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. It's Friday the 31st of January and it's time for Friday 5. This is where we take a look at the top 5 stories that have been making the news at the City Ground over the last week. It's been an eventful few days, with Forest getting hammered 5-0 at Bournemouth, and as the week has gone on, more and more transfer stories and rumours have come out of the woodwork, and as we approach the end of the January transfer window, I'm sure things are going to hot up. I'm Steven Toplis, and in a moment I'll be joined by the Maradona of the Midlands, but for now let's go over to Rich on the 1865 news desk.
Hello, it's Rich here, sitting in for Jamie at the 1865 news desk again. This is your bulletin for Friday the 31st of January 2025, and the big stories from the City Ground this week. Firstly, there's obviously a big cloud when it comes to first team matters, as the Reds got spanked 5-0 by Bournemouth last weekend. This was the heaviest defeat since Nuno Espirito Santo took charge of the Reds, and as R. George commented in last week's match report, when Forest aren't on it, they have been vulnerable to beatings, and this was shown in multi-goal defeats to Newcastle, Arsenal and Man City. The silver lining from the last week was the nomination for Callum Hudson-Odoi for Premier League Goal of the Month. Despite Southampton gifting us the ball, the winger still had to take control and he thumped it into the bottom corner. It was a brighter week for the Forest women's team as Carly Davis's side went through to the League Cup final following a 1-0 victory away at #United. The home team are leaders of the equivalent division to the Reds, the Southern Premier Division, and a late penalty by top scorer Charlie Wellings, followed by a great save by Emily Batty, saw Forest through to the final, where they will play Stoke City on Sunday the 23rd of March at the Bescot Stadium. The Reds return to league action away at Halifax this Sunday before a run of 4 games at the City Ground throughout the rest of February. Now onto a bit of transfer news. With the deadline just a few days away, it remains to be seen whether the Reds will make any additions to their squad. Nuno says that someone to come and give us help has to be someone different and has to fit in the squad. So someone that brings a different option, a different solution. As predicted in last week's bulletin, Andrew Omobamidele has moved on loan to Strasbourg, joining the Ligue 1 side for the rest of the season with an option to make it permanent. In the meantime, B-team striker Asapa Song has returned to the City ground from his loan at Rotherham United before immediately heading out to Cambridge to spend the rest of the campaign with the League One side. Head of Football Development and Talent Management, Craig Mulholland, not only has a long job title, but he also praised Cambridge for their professional approach to signing the youngster. To stick with the B team, our fourth story reports that the youngsters have played a couple of matches in the last week. Friday saw the Reds defeated 2-0 away at Arsenal in Premier League 2, leaving them 16th in the 26-team division. However, there was happier news in the Premier League Cup as they beat Hull City under-21s by 1-0. The next B-team game in the league will be against Derby on the 10th of February, which is at the adopted home ground of the Loughborough University Stadium. Get down and support the Reds if you can. And finally for today, the first team return to action and will look to make amends in tomorrow's match against Brighton. Callum Hudson-Odoi will still be missing for another week or two, and it remains to be seen whether Nuno sticks with Jota, opts for Ramon Sosa, or toys with moving Dominguez or Anderson into a wide position. The head coach also reported some positive injury news, with Ibrahim Sangare and Danilo in contention for first-team action. On the subject of bouncing back after last week's horror show, the Forest gaffer said, "We have to react, it's obvious. It's just back to the basics, back to the things we do well, recognising our strengths and our weaknesses and try to perform better because it was a bad performance. Let's hope for better and a return to winning ways." So those are your top 5 stories for this week, and this has been Rich Ferraro at the 1865 News Desk. Now it's back to Steven and Maradona in the studio.
Thanks, Rich. And now let's take a look at those stories in a bit more detail. I've got the Maradona of the Midlands with me. Hello.
Hello, Wolf.
And let's start with the events of the last week. So Forest suffered their heaviest defeat of the season last weekend away at Bournemouth, losing 5-0. And it was just a day to forget all round. We covered that in our match report. So let's move on to Callum Hudson-Odoi. He might be injured at the moment, but there is some positive news. His goal against Southampton has been nominated for the Premier League's Goal of the Month. And I think it's a deserved nomination, don't you, Maradona?
I suppose. I'm a little bit surprised it's been nominated. It doesn't seem as eye-catching as some of the goals that are normally nominated for a Goal of the Month. But it's good technique, good finish, and good for Callum.
And hopefully he makes a return to first-team action soon. Our next story involves the Forest women. They have reached the League Cup final with a 1-0 win over #United. Congratulations to them. A penalty from Charlie Wellings sending Forest into that final against Stoke City. We can now hear a little bit more about this result. Let's go over to Adam.
Well, what a wonderful weekend it was for the Forest women. They made the trip down to Essex for the FA Women's National League Cup semi-final against #United. #United are a much fancied team in the women's game at the minute. They're top of the Southern Prem, and they've obviously got the financial powerhouse of the YouTube scene behind them. Now, it was really probably #United that started the game better. They had a wonderful effort that was probably millimetres past Emily Batty's goal to start the game off. Forest took about 20-25 minutes to get into it, really. Charlie Wellings came the closest to scoring. Not a surprise there whatsoever. We had a couple of sort of just really cagey chances, nothing major, until Nat Johnson pinged one from 25 yards, but it was comfortably saved. And then there was a couple of #United chances just before half-time, but nothing too concrete. Now, second half was much of the same. You had two teams here that definitely didn't want to make a mistake. Both teams wanted to reach the final, of course. Amy Sims came on in the second half. She made a massive difference. She was playing the ball in behind really well. She played a really good ball in behind to Mel Johnson, who was denied by a great save by Angel in goal for #United. Forest added a couple more players to the scene. Bridget Galloway and Holly Manders came on, two subs that you're very familiar with if you're watching the Forest women's team. And right before the end of the game, just as it looked as if it was going to extra time, Forest were awarded a penalty. It was a foul on Nat Johnson. For me, it definitely was a penalty. Nat maybe made the most of it, but again, the contact was there. It's definitely a penalty, no doubt about it. None other than Charlie Welling stepped up. Of course she did. And of course she finished it off. Cool as you like, that's what she does. And right at the end, just as it looked like Forest had got the win, Emily Batty made a fantastic save. Just seconds, 30, 40 seconds, minutes maybe even before the end. And that got Forest into the Women's Cup final. Very, very exciting times for Forest. Forest travelled to the Bescott Stadium in Warsaw on the 23rd of March to play fellow Northern Premier League side Stoke. So it's going to be a fantastic affair. If you can get down, please do. I'm going to head down myself. Not a doubt in my mind. It's going to be a great day. And in February is a massive month for the Forest women's team as they play at home 4 times in February. So if you can get yourself down, get yourself down. And come on, you Reds.
Thanks, Adam, for that roundup there. And we wish the Forest women all the very best in that League Cup final against Stoke.
Hi, it's Rich here, and thanks as always for listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Now, as promised, we have got an exclusive pair of tickets to give away for the audience with Billy Davies coming up at the Albert Hall on the 20th of February. In order to win 2 tickets for this event, all you need to do is answer the following question. So the question is, who was the first signing that Forest made, on loan or permanent, after Billy Davies took over as Nottingham Forest manager in his first spell? So who was Billy Davies' first signing as Nottingham Forest manager? To enter the competition, you need to email your answer to forestramble@gmail.com with the subject line Billy. That's forestramble@gmail.com and the subject line Billy. We will have a look at the answers after the closing date of the 4th of February, and the winner will be emailed with details of how to claim their tickets. So, who was Billy Davies' first signing as Forest manager? Email forestramble@gmail.com with the subject line Billy. We'll notify the lucky winner after the closing date of the 4th of February. Good luck.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Transfer news now is our next story, and it is that time of season again, the winter transfer window. It's almost coming to a close, a couple of days left. We're not sure yet if Forest are going to add to the squad. We spoke last week about Johan Wisser and Mateus Cunha among Forest targets. What do you think of Nuno's comments, though? He's been a bit cryptic this week and just saying, we need somebody different to come in.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree with him. I mean, I don't really think we should be buying anybody in this transfer window. I know I'm in a minority of one, and I think every other Forest fan I speak to say, "Oh, we need a striker. We need a striker." But I don't think we do. I remember back to in the Billy Davies days when Chris Boyd came in for the run-in of the season on loan, and everybody thought, "Oh, that's brilliant! That's the answer to what's going to push us over the line." And it really disrupted the team, and he didn't score that many goals. And I think the balance in that squad and the team spirit is just so good. There's football, as much as they try and convince us, the people in football, that it's a science, there's a great deal of alchemy involved in it. And then for some reason, Forest have just struck on this formula this season where, not necessarily the greatest group of players have just combined brilliantly to find a way of winning matches and doing incredibly well. And I'm worried that bringing in the wrong person could disrupt that. And also the transfer fees that have been mentioned, like £60 million for Cunha. I would ask people who are saying we should definitely buy that, would they have said that this time last year if they'd seen Cunha play? I know I wouldn't have. I always thought he was an okay player, but I thought not much more than that. His finishing left a lot to be desired. I remember speaking to a Wolves fan and saying if he could finish, he'd be a great striker. But didn't think he was that great. And so just having 6 months of a good season, but a lot of those goals have come in sort of in batches, I don't think is a wise investment. A club of this size, of Forest size, spending £60 million and then that not working out as a transfer, not working out well, would leave us in serious trouble. It would severely restrict our options in the future of future signings in terms of PSR. And just having the money to spend, £60 million is a huge amount of money if you think about it. And so I agree with Nuno. You've got to be 100% sure. It's got to be the right sort of player with the right money who doesn't necessarily risk the future of the club and really add something different to the squad. And I'm not sure Cunha does at the moment. So I'm with Nuno. Let's just, if we can get that ideal player, then definitely go ahead and buy him. But I'm happy to be patient. I'm reminded of the old adage, a fool and his money. No, I can't remember it now. What is it?
A fool and his money
are easily parted.
Yeah.
And also the other one, buy in haste, repent in leisure. So both of those, I think, are worth remembering at during the January transfer window. I think we should just be careful and see how the club goes about invests in our hard-earned season ticket money on some rather than some flash in the pan Carlos Kickable.
I'll throw another name at you because Forest have reportedly been offered the opportunity to sign Brighton striker Evan Ferguson. He's somebody who is very much up and coming, highly talented player, seems to have struggled recently at Brighton with injuries and form. There's clearly a player in there, though. Could he be the kind of profile that Forest bring in and perhaps should be looking to bring in?
Yeah, more so, I think, than Cunha, because I think the transfer fee would be more reasonable. He's at a younger age, where we could maybe sell him on later on for bigger money. And he similar sort of style of play where he'd fit in well in the style we play in, where the crosses coming in from the wings. He could slot in Chris Wood without any real issues. The only problem is he's been injured last year or so. I think he's had ankle problems. So you're always worried how he's going to come back to that. And the spectacular thing about him was that he was performing at a level that belied his tender age. He didn't look like a teenager. He looked like a man, a bit like when Rooney came in. It wasn't just the fact that those players were scoring spectacular goals. It was that they were doing it at such a young age. So if you take out the age element of his performances, he's probably still performing at a high level and a decent enough performer. But I think some of the wonder and awe of his performances, but maybe slips away a little bit. It's not as impressive. If it was a 27-year-old playing like that, you probably wouldn't take that much notice. It was the fact that he was so young and he was doing that. So you're buying potential. So it's always going to be a bit of a risk. But if you can get him for a reasonable transfer fee, that shouldn't be an issue. But as you're dealing with Brighton, they don't really do reasonable transfer fees, do they? I saw that they turned down over £60 million for Mitoma from a Saudi club. So the statement they put out is apparently that they don't need to sell and they have no desire to sell. So they would want top dollar. They probably want over 30 million, 35 million, which then I don't think is good value for money. Somebody who scored so few goals and has had injury problems.
We will wait to see what happens in the remainder of the transfer window. I've got a feeling that Forest won't be completely quiet between now and when the window shuts. Some transfer outgoings, though. Andrew Omobamidele, as we mentioned last week, his move to Strasbourg has now gone through. He's moved to the French team on loan. And then Asapa Hasong, he's initially returned from his loan at Rotherham, but now been loaned straight back out to Cambridge in League One, and that will be more first-team football experience for the promising Forest youngster. And speaking of Forest youngsters, the B team lost 2-0 at Arsenal in Premier League 2. Moving on to our next story, that leaves them 16th out of 24 in that division. But more positive news in the Premier League Cup. They beat Hull City's under 21s. And then Maradona, it's Derby up next. Whatever level, it's always a tasty affair, isn't it?
It is. I think with the troubles Derby are having at the moment, I wouldn't normally say this before a Derby game, but it's got to be a certainty that Forest thrash them. They're going to be must be terrible. So judging by how bad the Derby first team are, their second team must be absolute pants.
Kicking my Marlies down, eh? And moving on to our final story then, and it's partly looking ahead to Brighton, but also having a look at Forest injury news. So Callum Hudson-Odoi is going to miss this game as well. He's still injured. And this does leave a dilemma as to whether Jota Silva, who started last week, whether he continues in Hudson-Odoi's place or Ramon Sosa is brought in instead. Or the other option, and it's an option we've done earlier in this season, putting Nicolas Dominguez out wide, possibly even Elliot Anderson. Both of them can do a job in those positions. How would you play at Maradona? Would you give Jota Silva another opportunity, or would you look to bring somebody else in for Brighton?
It's a tricky one. I do feel sorry for Jota Silva because he's had a bit of a beating this week from Forest fans after his performance down at Bournemouth. He's been universally panned. So I'm not going to write him off just yet. I think there's still potential there. They maybe his strongest position is as a number 10, where he wouldn't have quite the defensive responsibility. I think he maybe struggles with that defensive weight that comes with playing on the wing. I think against Brighton, we're not going to have much of the ball. It might be a good opportunity to go a little bit more defensive again and bring in either Dominguez on the wing, as was happening a bit earlier on the season. It restricts us slightly in terms of our attacking options, but it leaves our bench looking stronger. If both Jota Silva and Ramon Sosa, Ramon Sosa, not Ruben Sosa, he was somebody else. Ramon Sosa on the bench, it gives us a bit more of an attacking option to later on in the match. Last week it looked a little bit short off the bench with Jota starting. So yeah, maybe, but it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I don't want to write off him. I'd like to see Sosa giving a go as well. But if it's going to be a tight tactical game, maybe just keep your aces up your sleeve on the bench this one and go solid for the first half.
Forest could be bolstered by the returns of Ibrahim Sangare and Danilo from injury. So that could also give Forest further options, perhaps having those two on the bench as well. Yeah,
it's good news. And another reason why I'd be reluctant to go into the transfer market. You've got two really expensive and good quality players there who need need space to sort of move into the team again. If it's clogged, we've had it in the past where we've had too many players in the squad clogging up the space and the pathway for other players. So I'd like to see them both come back into the team and make a positive contribution between now and the end of the season. Just a fresh pair of legs, both of them, and fresh ideas, fresh minds. Maybe some of our players are mentally fatigued now after all the publicity they've had in recent weeks. All the talk of our Forest in the title race. Are they going to qualify the Champions League? So maybe bring in two relaxed sort of fellas like Danilo and Sangare might just help them out a bit.
And how do you expect Forest and Nuno to react after what happened at Bournemouth last week? Because that performance and the result was so out of character, wasn't it, from what we've seen from Forest so far this season?
Yeah, I mean, whenever they've lost so far, they've always bounced back brilliantly. You think back to the last defeat at Man City, which was sort of equally disappointing because they were at a low ebb then. I mean, we had a chance to go and beat them there. And they came out and really put in a top performance at Old Trafford to beat Man United. When everybody was a bit doom and gloom, it's just, expecting another defeat for lots of people in Manchester. So I think they would have had a nice fresh week and maybe would have rested for a couple of days just to get a break in. Some of the players, Marilla looked tired last week, and I think the other players just uncharacteristically off it, just defensively not doing their simple jobs, just not closing down, not putting in tackles where you'd expect them to do. So I think they'll be raring to go again and just prove that they are still in the race for Europe, and the bubble hasn't burst. Their professional pride will kick in, and I'm expecting a positive reaction.
And we will have our match report after the Brighton game, so do look out in your podcast feeds for that one. And don't forget as well, if you've not listened to it already, to listen to our 1994-95 season review when we look back on that brilliant season for Frank Clark's Forest side. Part 1 is out now and it's in your podcast feed, so do have a listen back to that one. My thanks to Rich for providing the news stories. Thank you to Adam for the women's team update. Thank you as well to Maradona for joining me, and thank you for joining us. We will leave it there, and until next time, we'll see you soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.